You open an app, swipe through a few dozen carefully staged photos, and within seconds, a quiet feeling of insignificance settles in. You are rapidly consuming glimpses of lives that seem larger, wealthier, and far more successful than your own. This immediate drop in self-worth is driven by the trap of endless desires. When we measure our daily routine against the highlight reels of peers and strangers, we slowly dismantle our own capacity for happiness. The problem with this measurement is that it ignores the hidden struggles attached to those lives. There is an old fable about a crow who wept over his dull black feathers, wishing he had the brilliant, pristine white plumage of the swan. But upon finding the swan, he learned she spent her days envying the vibrant colors of the parrot. The parrot, in turn, felt miserable living his life trapped inside a decorative cage, entirely convinced that the free-roaming peacock was the happiest bird alive. When the crow finally sought out the peacock, he found a bird living in constant terror. Because of his magnificent tail, hunters constantly plucked his feathers for profit, leaving the peacock wishing for nothing more than the crow's plain, unbothered freedom. Modern envy operates on the exact same flawed logic. It guarantees misery because it forces us to compare our own complex, painful internal reality against a curated, pain-free illusion of someone else's life. Escaping this cycle requires 3 immediate shifts in behavior, starting with the active recognition of that unseen pain. Every seemingly perfect existence carries an invisible tax that you are not factoring into your comparison. Second, you have to stop treating your life like a machine that can be perfectly calibrated and recognize it as a river. The water does not try to break the rocks in its path. It must flow around them. Fighting the natural current of your circumstances drains your energy and leaves you exhausted. Inner peace requires surrendering to the reality of the present moment, rather than struggling against it. The third step is breaking the chains of overthinking. You do this by deliberately anchoring your attention on the assets and skills you currently possess, rather than fixating on the deficits you perceive. In practice, this means forcefully grounding your mind in immediate physical reality. When anxiety about your status arises, focus entirely on the physical task in front of you, the feeling of your feet on the ground or the tool in your hand, to sever the tie with abstract fears. Implementing these 3 steps neutralizes the urge to look outward. Once the mental space is cleared of endless desires, you finally have the bandwidth to discover what you are actually capable of building. Consider a young, highly talented painter who spent his days rendering vibrant, highly imaginative scenes of nature. Despite his clear ability, he viewed himself as a complete failure. His misery stemmed from a daily habit. He would visit the town square to observe the royal artist, a man who produced strict, rigidly precise portraits for the wealthy. Looking at those exact, photographic reproductions, the young man felt his own colorful, chaotic landscapes were worthless. Convinced of his inadequacy, he packed his brushes away and surrendered entirely. This diagram illustrates the logical flaw in the painter's thinking. The dashed line shows an apple tree measuring its height against a towering coconut tree. Using height as the only metric makes the apple tree seem inferior. But shifting focus to its deep roots and heavy fruit reveals different, equally vital strengths. If a fish spends its life attempting to fly, it will die believing it is useless, ignoring its ability to navigate the ocean. Adopting another creature's definition of success guarantees a lifelong feeling of failure. The painter's sense of failure was entirely manufactured. He possessed immense talent, but he was mistakenly grading his highly expressive discipline using the metrics designed for the royal artist's strict realism. The afternoon he gave up, a blind, wise woman from the village knocked on his studio door. She had heard of his frustration and came with a specific request. She asked him to paint the sun, but rather than demanding its exact physical shape or the precise geometry of its rays, she commanded him to paint the feeling of its warmth. To accomplish an abstract challenge like this, the painter had to rely on a psychological tool known as ancient silence. He closed his eyes and deliberately emptied his mind. He discarded realistic shapes, ignored strict metrics, and quieted his inner critic. Achieving this profound internal quiet allowed him to tap into true intelligence. Without the noise of comparison, He selected his brightest yellows and oranges, painting based purely on the internal emotional resonance he felt on his skin. Silencing the noise of external expectations is the absolute prerequisite for progress. You cannot unlock or utilize your unique internal vision while you are busy listening to the demands of the crowd. When the canvas dried, the blind woman reached out, her fingers gently tracing the thick, passionate strokes of oil paint he applied to the surface. She smiled and revealed the truth of his work. His ability to translate raw, invisible emotion into physical reality was his actual gift, carrying far more value than a mimicked, sterile realism. To cultivate this kind of authenticity in your own life, you must implement 3 daily habits. First, deploy what is called the weaver's mirror. The moment your inner critic begins comparing your current path to a peer's success, immediately catch the thought and silence it. Second, choose purpose over noise. Strictly curate the information you consume every day, intentionally starving your desire to observe and critique the lives of others. Third, practice extreme patience. Building an authentic, highly unique skill set operates on a completely different timeline than standard, conventional career tracks. You must walk with honor and remain fiercely present in your daily tasks. Instead of filing down your eccentricities to fit a mold, lean heavily into the exact traits that differentiate your work from the masses. As this geometric animation shows, the sun and the moon do not shine simultaneously, yet both exist in perfect equilibrium and remain essential. Fully embracing your own authentic path without glancing sideways is the only way to finally find your light.